Spacestation Gaming currently sitting 2 games up over Gale Force eSports, 2-0. Gale Force has not won 1 game yet in this best of 5. Very unexpected. Granted, Spacestation, we know that they boot camped, we know that they've been putting in the work, and they've been waiting to be able to show us those results. But Gale Force is at the top of the freaking standings, Dread.
And it's not like Spacestation Gaming. They went in, they get rebranded, they go into the boot camp, and it's not like they walked in North America door in this metaphor and just busted that puppy open and was like, we're here, boys. This is it. We're here to play. And they had heavy struggles in week number 1 and 2.
Granted, you know, when you go to space, it takes a while to get used to the changes of gravity. So maybe that's it took them a while. They lost to Lag Force, and then they lost to Tempo Storm, but they the whole time were just getting accustomed to their spacesuits, getting ready to just like put on a show, and now they've gotten used to it. They might be unstoppable.
Have you ever tried to not fat finger your heroic whenever you're wearing an astronaut suit? Because I'm here to tell you, I watched Tiger JK try and hit palm once, and that puppy, it's pretty hard to only hit R button at that point in time.
Yeah, they had to design new gloves and everything.
I mean, it's really, we've honestly, just by having somebody, you know, a representative from outer space and NASA and that whole squad jump into esports, we really have innovated both areas with technology advancements. And first of all, space, or specifically astronauts and their gloves.
Well, let's see if they're going to be in space again and have that sort of gravitic benefits. No, we're going back to Battlefield of Eternity.
Going to hell instead. I'm ready. Just go.
Kick. Well, they're the blue, so I think they will be on the heavens' side.
Okay.
So I don't.
We don't know directions in that avenue, so it still didn't help.
It's a mystery as to how much of a benefit they'll have there.
The biggest thing here is the fact that holy Gale Force down 0-2.
Yeah.
The first game with the Sylph again. That was just confidence. I don't blame them the least bit for the decision making. I do, again, I talked about their playstyle and how they performed with the composition. That I do blame, but the direction they went with that draft, I feel like was very well educated and what the better team should do in those cases. But game 2 and how that went down, and now, more importantly, match point for them is just, it's kind of cool knowing that Gale Force feels like they're going to be tested for the first time. They've had a pretty easy route. I say that they've taken amazing teams, right? Like they've just looked amazing, but they have never truly felt like their backs were kind of against the wall, and more like into an opponent that maybe shouldn't be the ones doing it, you know?
Let's see what the public, what you guys at home are saying about this match so far. And you always can talk with us using the hashtag HGC.
See?
We've got Haloran. We know Haloran very well. What did I just witness? Spacestation, what? That was insane. It was an insane comeback for them on Brax's holdout. That was game 1, or game 2. But even in game 1, being able to win there with the Abathur composition early on. And then, Dread, why don't you go ahead and read this one?
Hey, oh gosh, Ho Jawa Meats. Here we go. When was the last time you saw a team start a boss, get engaged on, turn the fight around, and ultimately the game around to win? Only in HGC. You are correct. Only in the HGC can we find wild boss turns like we have seen throughout the series. There were a couple fights over that last game that I was just like, how was Spacestation able to turn this?
They didn't have 16 at the beginning of that thing.
They didn't have a lot going for them. What they did have going for each other was, in fact, spirit, heart, and drive. Motivation. The things that have gotten Spacestation Gaming 2 games up over GFE.
And importantly, air. A full air tank. As we go into game 3. Gale Force eSports now has first pick, first ban. I want to run some numbers by you guys because this is Spacestation's Battleground and has been their Battleground pick quite a lot, but they are currently 1-5 on Battlefield of Eternity.
So you're saying there's a chance?
There is definitely a chance for Gale Force to win this game, whereas Gale Force are 5-1. 5 wins, 1 loss. So just about exact opposite on Battlefield of Eternity. It's not really one that Gale Force... they actually have been picking it, but it'll be still Spacestation's pick. But look, Gale Force has the Tastar.
Spacestation Gaming gonna raw Tracer here before even getting to the secondary ban phase. They're just gonna take it away. Tracer in a spacesuit, probably, you know, on top of her already suit, will slow her down a little bit. So I don't know if we're gonna see Spacestation Gaming take off too fast with that one. But the biggest thing is Equinox has been huge with Tracer in the past, has been willing to pick it up, has looked threatening. The Task Tracer on a map like Battlefield of Eternity is one that you never really want to risk. this is one of the only cases where I don't hate the idea of a team just going, what if we take it away? We don't even need the bonus. She is pretty effective on her own, even just solo Tracer on a map like BOE.
The last time the Space Station played on Battlefield of Eternity, they brought in a triple warrior composition with Equinox playing Artanis. Any chance that they'll bring that back? Didn't win.
I think there's a chance considering that Tassadar means that Tassadar's terrible in the race, right? Tassadar is a very weird hero. He's so weird in the aspects of strength and weaknesses and where he goes in and where he goes out. But he has this kind of double-edged sword that was much like the old Illidan composition problem, where a lot of the people Tassadar is really good with, he's really bad against. So it's like it's really good to take him because you can synergize with all the things. And the same with the opposite, or with the inverse case. It exists on BOE with him specifically on the map. All the heroes he accents to be able to aid into the race, it typically means your playstyle is going to be team fight focused, or it's not going to be race focused, it's going to be macro. It just makes it to where whatever that one hero is, that's your whole comp. That's done. That's how you're running BOE. And so it seems it's bold that Gale Force is willing to first pick that here, and if it's not a Tracer, all other cases goes, I can beat this for Space Station Gaming.
Well, Space Station do have a lot of good damage now for the Immortal race with their Vala. They're not giving a Vala task pairing, and they get their ETC back. Now Gale Force add in Li Ming, so no Tracer yet, and they get Malthael again, another good hero. Both of these heroes excellent in being able to poke down Immortals.
Apparently he's dropped so far out of the meta, the Space Station Gaming don't even consider the ban, unless that's going to be picked up, which I don't think that's an argument or a situation where I expect it to be picked up. Apparently Task Tracer has made its way out of the North American meta almost completely. Really surprised to see that, honestly, on BOE.
Well, we have seen ETC sometimes be a pick against that on Battlefield of Eternity in Europe because of the armor he gives for the early game pulse bombs. And then potentially there's maybe some shielding that they could get to help out with that later on with the last few picks. But it is very interesting to see that that was an opportunity. It was on the table.
Oh, yeah.
It was juicy. It looked lovely. And it was just like, no, thank you. I'm on a Tracer diet. I can't have any.
Talking about diets, man. Holy cow. You can't even bring that up. I am currently in the process of being on my diet, and man, I feel like I'm going to die. Lucio ban, that is
for the Malthael.
Yeah, that has been a
huge.
That is so awesome to see Gale Force be able to rid of that. We have not, I think I'm willing to say we have not seen just flat out almost a Lucio ban at all in HGC North America. So finally, he has become relevant enough to be taken away. And as you said, it's because of the Malthael. Shielding is really good because Malthael does really good against healers directly. You can reduce the healing, his grievous wounds. It's just, it's so powerful.
Space Station in all 3 games have banned a new Barak versus King Caffeine. In that same position, oh my. Karazim.
I feel like
Alarak with ETC follow-up. Man, the stun lock potential with Immortal stuns behind this, that's getting scary. And of course, Tiger JK, Karazim makes a lot of sense. Any chance he can get to play Karazim.
So then Gale Force here, the last choice to be able to respond to this and stop the threat, because you're talking about the telekinesis power slide through lethal around the shrine itself. Its defensive offensiveness around the Immortals is almost unmatched. If you thought Task Tracer was a problem, I would like to introduce you to the crowd control monsters that you see on the side of Space Station Gaming. So how you beat that strategy is you just don't play the macro game. Everybody on the side of Space Station Gaming is terrible at sitting in a minion wave and soaking it up and playing the later stages. So Falstad, Dahaka, something to be way more macro focused that isn't the Malthael.
But they need support and main tank.
I know, but it's the Leo something. What do we got, Gale Force? Do they agree? Probably not.
Uther, Garrosh.
The Garrosh, you know, there's a lot of blow up, a lot of one shot between the flip, the CC, and everything for Gale Force eSports here. But that is such a terrifying situation for Space Station. And as long as this last pick,
I think it's going to be a full commit to Tyrande.
See, I'm hoping it's a false stat on their end.
There we go.
Ooh,
nice.
This is going to be terrifying. Now they win the macro too, and it accents the kill potential within the 4. And it trades well into the Malthael. Like everything about this here for Space Station Gaming they better have their new pair of gloves on, because they're going to have to beep boop the buttons real hard. And when they do, their comp is so well thought out. I feel like well-rounded. I almost feel like this is the only game I give the draft over to the members of Spacestation Gaming, too.
You know what's really cool for Spacestation is they've sort of been setting themselves up as this team that is willing to try to counter their opponent's drafting. And so far, honestly, hasn't really been working out to the best for them. Versus Tempo, it was evident that some of the picks they chose to do that put them in a situation where they had a really hard burden of execution and they couldn't execute on that. Things like the Zeratul, things like the Jaina, although they did have that great team fight around the boss. But in this instance, versus Gale Force, it seems like it's been reined in just enough that they know, like, they're figuring out when that's okay and when they need to go back to the meta. Yeah,
and this is going to be another case of exactly that, right? The burden of execution is in their hands, and, like, Gale Force being a formidable opponent, we saw what happened in the last game in the power spike Gale Force got. They won levels 1 through 9. That game was Gale Force eSports. Even though this is 2-0s, they won most of it, and we don't need to go back to Gale Force or game number 1 and see the Gale Force Sylvanas situation. I feel like, again, I'm kind of throwing that game out in terms of the power level of these teams. So with that in mind, it's still going to be a struggle here for Spacestation, but I am optimistic. If they played this game clean, and again, you removed maybe the titles of both these teams, I would probably lean more towards Spacestation. I feel like it's more forgiving. The biggest key is just don't feed 1 through 9. Avoid that at all costs. And if you do that, you should be superior against your opponent here, because they want to play the stall, slow, late game Malthael split. You have the lethality within your 4-man, within the all-the-rack ETC, and then more importantly, you won the global with the false set. As long as you abuse those elements, should be a game.
And the global can reset the fight with Mighty Gust once Malthael comes in, if things aren't as good setup for Spacestation Gaming.
But if you dance around all day trying to get your 4-man to be a problem and you're never really making anything happen with it, then Gale Force side soaks 2 extra waves. You're the global without getting global advantage. That's what I see this game happening, right? Is like, we're like, why are they winning here in this avenue? And it's all because the 4-man is just not working out. Much like Mert and Toronto compositions, all the rack has to be effective. So does the ETC. They have to be very synergistic. And if that doesn't work, I mean, let's be real here. Everything we've said about Spacestation Gaming collapses, and it's this game looks really ugly.
So what gives for Spacestation then? Because their flexing has not been very good so far this time. It allowed them to be even in death, but that should have been, we knew that was likely to be a skill difference, and because even in death haven't had the best luck of playing as good as they play in scrims when it comes to the competition. But versus Tempo Storm, we had things like the Void Prison just flat out missing at times. The burden of execution, it's cool. The ideas they come up like with the Jaina, it's just that they have to figure out, I guess, where the flexing can come in and what they can make sure and play really well. And let's continue this conversation, but let's go ahead and get into the game because we are ready to get into it. Game number 3, and we'll see if Gale Force eSports can start the reverse sweep or Spacestation closes it out.
Not only closes it out, but possibly within dominant fashion against the best of NA. That is Spacestation in the blue, with a very unique composition and even more unique talents.
Wingman!
Considering the map there, we got ourselves a wingman. Love it. No global, no gathering storm. Focus on to the wave clear in the side lane. So I'll say this much. That at least means to me that Spacestation Gaming agrees with the same elements of strength with their comp, because they are worried about soaking enough to gain value out of the wingman, and that those minion waves are going to be a problem because of the lack of macro that Gale Force has in their comp. Already, you know, wingman's a hard one to gauge whether or not it's the right or wrong versus Gathering Storm, but it does show that they have interest on macro play, and that is huge for Spacestation Gaming.
Talking Trees not going with Extended Lightning, trying to stack his Lightning instead just getting sustaining power, so increasing his healing that he can get from Lightning Surge by damaging heroes. Obviously we're seeing him already try to rotate around with ETC, so just wanting to make sure that he doesn't have to try to focus on stacking. We'll see what he does at 4, if he still feels confident that he's going to be defending enough, hanging around enough heroes that he can build into Chaos Reigns, or if he wants to go into a more Psalm-style build with Show of Force.
Calf there for a moment, trying to get the pull onto Equinox. I want to look at Equinox in this game, because when I play against Garrosh, most of the time I feel like I'm playing against Kerrigan. much like Kerrigan, you can move into the target when they throw out their pull, and the odds of them being successful with it or the combination behind it are very, very low. You know, obviously Kerrigans oftentimes build it with the assumption you're going to walk away and you can overpull. So Equinox being the Kerrigan master against the Garrosh, does that make you a better like flip dodger? Because he just dodged internally there, but I don't know whether or not he had the reaction time at that point in time. The next one, if he's going to move in, I feel like he could be the greatest dodge onto calves to hooks or drags and pull-ins that we've ever seen.
That's a good point. He does have the movement speed that he gets off of having his hatred stacks, and that'll be key in making sure that he can continue to dodge the way that he needs, but we'll have to see how he does versus King Caffeine's pulls and how King Caffeine himself does with his Warbreaker, with his Groundbreaker combinations. There was one, avoided by Equinox. Because this is the first time we're seeing Calf play Garrosh, I believe, since the first series that they played. I don't think he drafted him versus. There's the flip. He's on the other side. Equinox is coming in for dash.
And he gets enough of the dash. But the slow, the drag, Li Ming got herself a reset. Throw a chunk right back into Equinox. Drag there, pull in a back Casanova. That was actually not, I don't know whose fault it was, but there was blatantly a miscommunication on the side of Spacestation Gaming. As Tiger moves up, he burns a dash, and then it gets into a drag range, but then everybody on Spacestation went upwards, so suddenly he's like, I have nobody to dash back to. You could just blatantly tell that his plan and the rest of Space Stations were not aligned. So that is something that they've got to be able to fix here. Hopefully during this first Immortal phase.
Yeah, both teams now with this Immortal phase have level 4. Equinox dodges another pull. King Caffeine, though, is going to throw Casanova. He power slides just in the nick of time to avoid the stun of the Immortal. Speaking of stuns, Occupace is there to catch Equinox. Still, Tiger JK is there. The rest of the team coming in from Space Station. This pulls in Michael Udall. And we've got full 5v5 around the Immortal of Gale Force eSports, but it's Space Station who are currently ahead. How does Gale Force respond? They're going to defend.
They can't defend this. Not with the scary composition. I feel like the Alarak HGC composition defensively has the opportunity to be able to move up there. The Malthael is going to start the race itself. The power slide comes through the combo. No follow-up here from the members of Space Station. Occupace is going to be the focus. First to fall, but he's got heals in ghost form.
It was excellent by King Caffeine to stop follow-up from Talking Trees by throwing him with his Wrecking Ball. But still, Space Station are willing to sit around and commit, especially knowing that there's no Uther Ghost now. Uther has been dealt with sufficiently by Space Station, and finally Gale Force retreats. They'll just have to bring down the shielding of the Immortal, but Space Station gets the first.
Space Station Gaming will get themselves this first Immortal, and that is a very big sign, or great sign for them. Calf barely able to make it out there. But because of that global advantage, it's just avoiding levels 1 through 9. I talked about the power spikes here that I assume Gale Force, if they are to win this game, how they need to do it. And the fact that the game is pretty, honestly, confidently going over to Space Station Gaming is a very good sign for them in this game. Now it's about what Space Station can do to be able to, or what Gale Force can do to stop the bleeding.
Man, there's going to be it, but he did not take Crowd Surfer this time. Still the silence combo. Behind that from Alarak will allow Casanova to escape, and everyone quickly taking down the gate. Space Station still getting on the fort. The Immortal's only halfway down, and everyone making sure to soak up the shots of Fan, of this Li Ming, enables Space Station to take out a fort with the first Immortal. Things look good for them here.
Not only was this the first Immortal and they are getting a lot off of it, we need to consider what are the future Immortals going to be looking like as well here, Gilly. I mean, to be honest, it's not like much changes. The only difference is going to be Malthael, if Malthael can be effective on the defenses. But Garrosh, Tassadar, Uther, those are heroes that are not good whatsoever on that race. And part of that is a bit of the problem I was talking about. When you pick a Tassadar on your team, the heroes he works with versus doesn't, and how that affects your offense and defense on the race is also your offense and defense when the Immortal is not neutral.
Yeah, and Gale Force have these two really good poking heroes like Li Ming. They have Malthael too, but they didn't take Throwing Shades. So they don't have the extra range on his E. And that puts them in a position where they have to be so scared of the positioning of Space Station, of that ETC and the Alarak behind it. If just one person gets caught, the lockdown is so severe, especially because it's Space Station who's defending, so the extra stuns with the Immortal, that dissuades Gale Force quite a bit from being able to get into a good poking position. And Space Station still have a Hungering Arrow build Vala behind to keep up with the Immortal health.
And one interesting thing that I noted here was we do see some Indomitable being picked up in North America. With the Tassadar and the Uther on the side of Gale Force eSports here, they already have, I mean, let's be real, an absolutely unrealistic amount of armor opportunities for the Garrosh. The Tassadar's level 4 speccing into it, and then we have Guardian of the Ancient King picked up there at level 7. It's very easy for him to max out, cap out into the armor department, and I feel like that leads to more argument into going to the reset on tier W, getting that 10% heal and dangling at that just, I mean, 30% or 30 extra armor, 40 extra armor, 50 extra armor, and just sustain that without drawing resources from the Uther, because Uther doesn't want to waste a full heal on his Garrosh. You know, maybe Divine Shield when necessary, but most of the sustain should come from him, and so I just feel like it's been a rising talent, and I'm surprised with the frequency of it, especially in comps like this that Gale Forces compose.
Well, I was wondering, yeah, that's pretty aggressive. What I was wondering is potentially, because they knew that Uther was going to go into Guardian of Ancient Kings, because there's so many different things that proc that with the silence of Alarak, instead wanting to make sure that if Mosh Pit comes in from Casanova, that Garrosh has a way to hit that, sees it, runs out, and then he can make sure that he is one of the ways of being able to stop a Mosh Pit. Because, but then again, they have a Li Ming, so they're going to have Wave of Force too. But maybe just making sure that they have a couple of different options for being able to stall that out. But you're right, there are a lot of different adjustments that the members of Gale Force have made, trying to make sure that they can get through the high damage of Spacestation, just like that. Garrosh and Malthael, good night.
And bigger than that, we have a problem to be focusing on called an Immortal. That is going to be halftime show level 9. Just now being achieved for Gale Force eSports. Gale Force has to be thankful that the halftime show has yet to go off. This is a lot of seconds that they are happy are not building what is going to be almost 17,000 shielding, even though that's not a direct translation and slightly a lie, but 17,000 shielding, TM, or not TM, but asterisk, on the side of Gale Force. It's going to be difficult to defend, but luckily, half a level window here from the 10 heroics. They can get that throughout bottom. The biggest deal is there's no, global, there's no side soaker advantageous for them. This is not free experience like most teams have on Battlefield of Eternity. Once that keep wall drops, I would like to see a Flight Gust all in, honestly, from Spacestation Gaming. This Immortal's so healthy. As long as GFE doesn't get free defenses, they can get a keep.
Malthael's now backed. Heroic ability is almost here.
Oh.
Psionic Storm doing what they can. Gale Force has the money flank with Garrosh and Uther as the follow-up stun for that.
Nobody's shown. No sidewall's been taken, though, so Spacestation Gaming can't move up. Jason's the focus.
There they go. Akaface gets it. Here goes the Jason,
Mosh!
But he got back.
He gets interrupted, though, so nobody getting a kill yet. Tiger JK is getting punched. Throws out the Gust. The Kite is there. K1 Pro getting out that damage. Counter-Strike is going to be used here, but nobody falling quite yet. Equinox will lose the 1v1. But the Palm procs, Divine Shield, Dimensional Shift, in the flip. Trees is going to be the first member down for Spacestation Gaming.
Gale Force gets the defense that they needed, though. They had to push beyond that to make sure that it's just now the Immortal and not the Immortal and 5 members of Spacestation damaging their keep. They can save this keep. It's low, but it's saved.
Gale Force holds on to the keep pressure up on top. That might be the beginning of the end. I focus on the, lethal that is lethality that is being displayed between the 4-man of Spacestation Gaming, and then more importantly, the lack of global by Gale Force and now for Spacestation Gaming. If that keep goes down, if any keep goes down for Gale Force, Falstad is going to be too big of a problem to recover. The core is always going to have to be babied with no mule to restore its HP. So that was a very big play, but it's not over yet. 13 Talontiers going to be here for Spacestation. Mike will find Jason in a 1v1.
And go after him. But
oh my gosh.
Instead, Mike is happy just to get the camp and steal that away from Spacestation, especially since it's up in this top lane. That'll be followed up by their Shaman camp, which is being taken right now. Nobody from Spacestation moving over to get theirs, though, just yet.
I was just going to say that Mike is not very good at sharing death. I feel like that 1v1 was winnable. I know why he pulled away. He just couldn't see enough members to feel confident that that was going to be his 1v1 there. But that barrel roll not being out of range for the W is the thing that would make or break the kill potential there. The biggest thing now has got to be that 13 that you were talking about for Spacestation Gaming that will come online in the Immortal race. Gale Force will hit. I'm second guessing that after seeing this timing. I thought we'd have about 15 more seconds. They will probably fail to hit the halftime show or hit 13 before the halftime show, but after that, it's realistic Gale Force will pick that up for themselves, especially with that bottom camp pushing out. That's going to be free experience for Malthael to pick up over time.
Spacestation, though, had very good timings with their camps. Yes, they did get the top camp stolen away from Michael Udall, but because Gale Force got their Shaman so early on, now the only camp that's on the board is the Shaman of Spacestation, and that is going to push members back. And there's no global for Gale Force eSports, so they're waiting for 13. That does give them time and the positioning of the bottom wave to try to get that. But we're already halfway done with the Immortal phase, Dread. That 13's still not here for Gale Force. They're still just now finishing off that camp.
You can tell the Gale Force realizes this situation is really drastic.
Dire.
Really dire. And that they do not want to mess this one up. They are very much trying to play it as safe as they can. The false ad pressuring up on top. People collapsing. He's going to make it away. Does he go for the keep? He will. No, you see him second guessing himself.
Malthael's now there. Recognizing this, Spacestation, once they figure it out.
Spacestation didn't get anything, though, with that 13 talents here. So now the Malthael, once he sees the false ad, should be able to collapse. And this is now an even footing 5 versus 5. The Malthael Falstad 1 versus 1, though, does go over to the Falstad-ish. Malthael can kill the Falstad, but Falstad can definitely out-siege. He lives.
Even so, Gale Force sent up their Uther and Garrosh, knowing that Spacestation were backing off for defending. Spacestation still have a great defense comp, and they are the ones who have gotten a lot done. As long as they can continue to try to go down and keep soaking lanes and soak up a lot of damage, Falstad's done it.
Mission complete.
Not impossible.
Hey, Falstad, though, can fly Gus now for a major play as Spacestation's getting that defensive posturing. He's still flanking. Jason here is a sneaky snake on that Falstad. Gale Force, they realize it now. Unable to track him. He just rotated behind Gale Force all the way down to bottom. Akka was thrown into the fray.
Trying to chase after Equinox and hit the stun. The first one, Trees pushes them back.
Oh, Mike burned Tormented Souls. Now they can't win this fight. Now expect Spacestation to turn this if they can keep Casanova alive.
Yeah, they have to keep him alive. Tormented is done. Casanova stays alive, so no resets for Fan.
This is falling apart for Gale Force.
They've still got the poke. They're catching up a little bit in the Immortal, but they are running out of time to make things happen, and knowing that Tormented is down changes a lot for Spacestation.
Oh, they got the poke, though, onto Equinox, making him second guess himself. There's that Indomitable used by King Caffeine. 6,000 drag onto Jason. Nothing gained, no flip. Successful power slide. Silence.
Trees, double silence. King
punch.
Caffeine is the one who is low out in front, though, and he is Garrosh, so he has a lot of the armor. Divine Shield's been used.
They still have a Mosh Pit available. Divine Palm is there, and same with the Strafe. Wave of Force is available for Li Ming to interrupt, though. And now Gale Force, they move up to the Immortal. They want to get the poke out there as they're still down 10,000 to 5,000 HP. Two catapults up on top are now going to make their way to the core of Gale Force eSports, but it is still yet to touch the shielding. Jason, flip attempt, not successful this time. Akka mounts up.
Gale Force are still in defensive status, defensive posturing, but they have not really been able to pull someone in. Finally, Casanova volunteers to come in, and the damage is immediate. Behind that, the Mosh Pit catches two, and Malthael's already been brought down thanks to the counter-strike.
And the taunt comes in, but it might be too late here. The knockback, the punch coming out from Fan. He needs another reset. Unable to get it. Tiger JK kites away with a Radiant Dash. Trees uses his telekinesis. He is going to be not so fine as he eats a pretty big orb, but Casanova's there. He's got the knockback, 1.6K.
Tiger
secures the damage, but not enough as he's flipped 561. Two catapults on the core of Gale Force eSports, but it's not enough yet. The minion scaling's not high enough. Jason, Fan has to hit full combo if he wants that kill.
Falstad's backed off, drawing away Tassadar and Li Ming. Now Casanova's the next to go in. This time, he gets the Immortal. Gust helping Casanova get out of danger along with the telekinesis.
My goodness. Space Station Gaming they walk away with this Immortal, they have a 16 for a full level over Gale Force Esports. And best of all, they will have themselves a Tiger JK at this keep front wall. Yes, it will lose the shielding and be low on damage, but that is within a window enough to secure a second keep on this game. Said it once, said it twice, hell, I'm going to say it a third time. There's no global for Gale Force to defend if this keep falls. This is going to be a major, colossal setback for them.
Thankfully for Gale Force, there's no mosh pit available. King Caffeine went in hoping to pull Jason and throw him back to the team. Take out the Falstad means taking out a possibility for Gus, and he'll have that in just a few seconds. Gale Force still bringing down the Immortal, but it's equally taking it down. Power Slide stops that, though.
He uses the Tormented Souls. The Gus is going to split them away. Casanova's in a bad spot now, gets his Radiant Dash. Mike Udall throws out a teleport, and that is the second keep, the last keep for Gale Force in what could be the last game of this series. So keep in mind, Spacestation Gaming is 2 games up against the #1 seed in North America, the team that has only lost 1 series to another team in all of Phase 2, Gale Force Esports.
And they're ready to continue the aggression. There's no 16 for Gale Force Esports. Spacestation jumps in to steal away this camp.
Casanova's split, but he's going to be comfortable on that side of the wall for a little bit. King Caffeine's receiving the pressure. Tiger JK goes ahead, helps out Jason. Mosh pit is used. Palm is still available. Will it be lands? It does land. Casanova survives.
Strafe doing damage in the back line, but now a lot of things have been used from Spacestation. Cleansing dash from Tiger JK. Saves Talking Trees from that pole.
And
this time Equinox dodges it. King Caffeine can't bring anybody into his team.
Spacestation Gaming, now they want to fight. They go in, they get the combo, telekinesis, silence, and King Caffeine is dead. Garrosh is out of here. 35 seconds for him to come back. The catapults have already removed the shielding. 67% damage onto this core. Can Spacestation do it?
They are definitely going to try. They've got catapults in both lanes. Jason is fairly low. Spacestation moves on to core. The Gust has been used.
50.
Tassadar trying his best to shield this core. Bala goes down. That is huge. So is Falstad. 2 people dead as Michael Udall jump on top of Spacestation.
But they get a rebuttal kill.
Takes down. Yes, Tassadar is down, but there's only ETC and Chalking Trees. The Alarak, Spacestation lose all 5 members, but they get the core to 47%.
4 seconds away from an Immortal spawning. So now Gale Force Esports has to do all the math in the world, do the calculations. What is going to be the most effective way to ensure that they cannot lose this game? Again, that is 47% on the core. Permanent damage there. This shielding on this Immortal, getting off the halftime show, is going to set us to about 15 seconds remaining for the last member, Alarak, to come back for Spacestation. Another 15 to get the Immortal. So 100% Immortal, sieging into a double fort scenario, unlikely to get lethal. Keep high probability, but by no means is that game. You would gain an experience advantage. So what is the only other option? It would have been to siege, that gets the keep 100%, and possibly the Immortal that could end the game. Gale Force takes the slower route. Take the safer one. Depending on how you use the word safe. I take that back, because when my core has any damage on it, any passive decision, in my opinion, is the non-safe route. But you could argue it's safe.
Dread, this is not the first time in this series that this has happened.
It isn't.
Gale Force Esports took damage on a core, defend it, but then go for the objective. And that game, they lost.
They aren't doing... When a lot of people ask, what do you do here? The only team who has done this like near flawlessly was Fnatic Dignitas on that Immortal Shrines or Infernal Shrines game, where you go towards your opponent's side of the map and you just draw so much aggro they cannot ignore you. Talking about being ignored, Casanova's not wanting that here. Strafe's dropped by Equinox a bit early as he falls below 50%. Jason pressuring with that camp down below. That's 1 catapult.
That's a lot being escorted to the core. And that prompts a response from Gale Force. The greatest thing for Gale Force is that they have done a lot of damage to Immortals, but they already forced the halfway point. So the minute that they just abandon this Immortal, Spacestation can get a lot done on it, and Gale Force want a very shielded Immortal. They need to be able to start dealing structural damage to Spacestation to get back in this game.
They need anything they can get to come back in this game, and right now, you see Akafe struggling to keep up the heals on that Uther. Power Slide is dodged there by the Dimensional Shift from by K1 Pro. Casanova seems to be the focus as Mike's moving up very aggressively. But the taunt, they actually found themselves adjacent off on the side. Gale eSports is up in man for 50 more seconds.
Spacestation has been doing this all game long. Oh, that was a beautiful combo. Pulling in Mike Udall. Man, Casanova followed up and finally Tormented Souls and Divine Shields used just because Mike Udall seemed like he couldn't ever get unstunned.
Spacestation Gaming has to buy time now. They realize that they are losing what is going to be this secondary or third immortal of the game. One catapult on bottom. Gale Force is going to send members back to respond to that, prep the bottom lane. They know that is the only remaining win condition is through bottom. And there's a lot of backdooring opportunities here for them at some point throughout this game. It's just making sure they threaten them. If Spacestation Gaming at no point, oh, they're going to.
Talk about a backdoor.
Maybe a little bit too much.
Stunned.
He's silenced.
He couldn't dimensional shift.
So no K1 Pro, 47%. They go on to Mike Udall. Drag lands onto Equinox.
Falstad can fly here, Dread, or at least fly very close. There's another combo.
Can Fan get a reset?
Udall. He's going to go down.
That's no Tormented Souls, no Mike Udall. King Caffeine's the next focus. Fan has to get resets if Gale Force is going to defend this. They're down 2 members.
King Caffeine and Uther hoping that they can set up Fan to do that, but everyone's staying very healthy. Falstad still flying back in. The escorted minions and the catapult's starting to get closer and closer to the core.
Casanova has a mosh pit. He's not going to use it yet. He gets flipped. He gets dragged. He finds Jason with him. Power slide is going to be used. Palm procs. It doesn't go off though. Gus, mosh,
oh no,
the
Gus
anti-synergy.
The mosh, but Fan may have been caught.
Look at the keep. The keep is being focused. Keep in mind, there is an immortal sieging. Spacestation had to win the game here, or at least is going to wish they were able to do so because there is still half an immortal sieging away at this keep, and this is a 20-minute scaling immortal. This puppy chunks.
It's going to chunk through the keep. But even still, Spacestation will have a keep and a fort over Gale Force eSports.
Does Falstad have flight? Because if so, he can still win this game.
He took Epic Mount. Gale Force have pushed Spacestation all the way back into their gate. To their base. There are 3 catapults in the top lane. Michael Udall using No One Can Stop Death was a huge moment for Gale Force. Deciding to pick that, make sure that they had the double damage dealers. It was a lot more threatening than just a Garrosh Uther and a Li Ming. Now they take down the keep.
I'm sorry, I'm so scared for Spacestation. They're getting aggressive when they're down in Alarak. Hello? They're the ones forcing this fight.
They're keeping them here.
They want this.
But there's no catapults on top of
There's
core,
no catapults
really.
on core at all. The taunt goes on to Tiger JK. Gust is used. That's a core-ending spell that they now don't have to move into the core as a 5 versus 5. Both sides here realizing the desperation of the situation.
But Spacestation don't need to be desperate.
You are so correct
here. They have a keep still, and they're the ones with the global.
So then how do we bring it back down to earth for Spacestation Gaming? Okay, because I feel like we've been in outer space a while, and maybe we've been hanging out on Cloud9 for way too long. That was a double pun if you know the members of Gale Force, but that's an old school one. Whatever. So now that we have brought it all back, we've gone full circle. What do they do?
Well, they've got all their members. You would think they would just get set up. Look at look at what they have in the lanes. They have the laning advantage. Just clear this out, get set up for the Immortal. The biggest thing you can do for Spacestation Gaming at this point in time is make Gale Force think that they can win this game. There's so much pressure onto the core that it is inevitable that you win this game when you have the Falstad global composition. You can win this game, but patience, young one. That is absolutely the biggest thing hurting Spacestation Gaming here. You know, Dread, it does seem like, to us, like an inevitable end, but you've got to realize that the souls must be tormented of Spacestation, that they know that the end of series is in sight, it's within reach, and yet they have not been able to win on a core call when that's what they have been known to do. So changing that up, adapting a strategy, becoming a different team almost, having a completely different strategy than what you do normally is hard for any team, especially in this situation. Yes, we can look at this and say, yeah, they're 2 games up, but for them, they're 2 games up over Gale Force eSports, maybe a place they never anticipated being. They gotta flip Casanova. Pressure onto the core is mounting, but not too much yet. Mike Udall on that mouth hill is getting that side soak to be able to rid of it. Li Ming went up towards top. Falstad, Jason is not once gone out to clear those lanes. Hold on a minute, combo lands on Aqua. He's okay for now. Double taunt. King Caffeine
Flip.
taunts them off to protect the team. Now Casanova and Talking Trees in a very bad spot because of that Immortal stun.
Casanova's very low. The counter-strike, we have Palm still available. It's going to be used. Trees gets it, but Tiger JK, it costs him his life.
Yeah, Michael Udall brings him down with Tormented Souls on the back line.
False hit flew to the core.
He's
They're going to
flying
end.
in.
It's just keeping them busy now. They need to make sure that Gale Force Esports can't back, but they aren't going to stop them.
Talking Trees is at least hanging out with Fan. Falstad is left.
He's
to
back.
join.
He got the silence. He's dead. What? Jason does the impossible.
Talking Trees too. He was so low. He stayed alive. He dodged probably everything. He was like Neo from the Matrix. This Immortal's halfway down.
Equinox into the fray. Akaface finds himself. Casanova receives the passive from Mike Udall. Nobody going down. Nobody initiating yet. Still 20 seconds until Tiger JK's Karasim is back. 35 until we find the Li Ming. But the catapult pressure is now restored back to the side of Spacestation Gaming. Up on top and bottom. 2 catapults on bottom, 1 there on top. We're still 45 seconds away till somebody has to answer, and most likely it will be the Li Ming. So what can we see Gale Force force?
This Immortal is almost certainly the game at this point. If Gale Force Esports were able to get it, likely because they won such a good team fight that they'd be able to get it. And it starts potentially with this, but Jason comes in to save Equinox with the Gust even as the stun started to come in. A 3-man Mosh in the back dread.
He hits the 3-man Mosh. The Radiant Dash is there for the cleanse. We do see the Divine Shield used from Mike Udall. Li Ming now clearing up the catapult pressure onto the core. So when it's all said and done, we see a huge trade of heroics. But Gale Force is the one who comes out on top of that. They get their Li Ming back. They're going back to the core, and more importantly, they have their heroics coming back online. Only the Counter-Strike and the Alarak and the Divine Palm have their heroics for Space Station Gaming.
Divine Shield is down though from Gale Force, and there's no cleanse, just Indomitable for Garrosh to have himself. They've caught Casa, but he power slides back through to the team. Michael Udall going in.
They're going ham, but into the fray is going to be used. Casanova is the primary target. He has no mosh pit. He has no life. He is gone. 60 seconds with no ETC. Gale Force claim another victim, but still want this Immortal.
So too do Space Station, and that nearly meant the end of Jason. Are we going to see Space Station do the same thing they did before? Yeah, they're drawing Gale Force apart if they can, but how many staggered deaths will be had before they can get that Immortal? They lose Vala now. Space Station goes in.
Jason
they have
has to
Alarak
live.
And Jason.
He burnt Gus. That is the only thing that's going to save him from losing this game. And then he gets stunned. He barrel rolls. He survives, but he's got to make it to the core at a healthy amount of HP. Now he uses his flight, and he's going to only tap, which means he can't make it to the core, which has the catapults. Gilly, Trees is in hot chase. Tiger JK gets the Radiant Dash. What am I experiencing here?
They
Divine
are gonna
Palm.
catch Trees.
He's got Palm.
Counter-Strike.
Core is now going to be the focus.
There. Trees still gets pulled back in. There's still 3 members here. Tiger JK doing his best to keep Trees alive.
He lives!
Because the longer he keeps him alive, the longer they keep Gale Force away.
And now
they get
the Immortal.
What?
The mastermind, the master plan, Space Station Gaming find the third in what looks like, which absolutely is the last Immortal of this game.
Game 3, where Space Station are already up 2 games. This is a best of 5, folks. If Gale Force cannot do the impossible here, then they will certainly fall to Space Station.
There's no way. They did it.
They did.
How in the hell did this happen? No, this game was just amazing from Space Station Gaming.
It was an awesome game all around, an amazing series for Space Station, and they will take down Gale Force Esports 3-0.
I'm gonna need a mini after that one. This was just... like, it's not necessarily that it happens always. It's usually how that gets me so confused. You know what I mean? I think you could tell me almost any result and I'd be like, I can believe it. Just give me a wild enough argument. But it's like the 3-0 fashion that they end up getting the win. in that it wasn't like cheese game on cheese game, blatantly game 2 and 3. We see Gale Force get a lead, and Space Station's like, we're not done with this game. We're going to reel it back in and get a win. My goodness.
It is awesome for Space Station, but so confusing for us now for standings. We do know this, though. There is no way now that Gale Force can clinch a spot at the HGC Finals at BlizzCon this weekend. Definitely still have the best chance of doing so, but no way this weekend now. So we know some things. They're silver linings.
And what we do not know is how good is Space Station Gaming. You know, I feel like we can conclude they are performing better than they did in weeks number 1 and 2. The synergy was without a doubt better coming out from them all throughout the games. Strategy development was slightly different, maybe, but I mean, they did innovate a little bit, but I didn't feel like it was suddenly the cheese factor, you know, being brought out here by Space Station Gaming. They just kind of walked in, played their game, and that was all she wrote.
One thing we do know is that ETC, which has been super important for a lot of different teams in a lot of different regions, Space Station has been a team that is highly prioritizing that hero. And whether it's because Casanova, he feels like it plays to his strengths really well as a fairly new warrior player, or whether it's just this team who has maybe figured out the most and how strong this hero is. ETC, ever since they made that swap of ETC priority over Rhaegar, things seem to be very good for Space Station.
Yeah, they do seem to be working out for them, and it might be, you know, it might be to a fault, right, with the success here. When you have such a outlier performance like this, a lot of teams are going, how does that happen? Suddenly everybody's going to be going, is ETC secretly something we need to be looking at a little bit more? And we might see now the rest of North America respect it a little bit more, but I think that's a good point to bring up, especially when looking at some of the European drafts and some of the teams and their priority onto ETC and where they're willing to pick it up. He is very apparently, you know, a hero to demand respect, and Space Station Gaming being the first to give it, I mean, it's giving them results here, and they played it very, very well. It's just Gale Force, I mean, they had a couple of moments today where I was like, that doesn't feel like them, especially game 1 with not playing the Sylph comp the way that they wanted to, and then a couple of moments with, like, in game number 2 on Braxis, but that final one was, I didn't see any major moment. It was just flat out pure outplay from Space Station. Other than, you know, Gale Force maybe not knowing how to come back from a game whenever there's too much damage onto the core, or taking the only call you can to win the game. That's the only thing I'd say from Gale Force. Yeah,
and Space Station, I mean, there were some frantic moments for them too, right? Even though they were ahead 2 games in the series, even if they lost that game, it wasn't the end of the world. It did feel like maybe to them, the momentum of just a clean sweep of winning 3 games in a row was so important to them that they were willing to be riskier in their positioning and losing some people, but making sure that they got the immortal out of it. Man, that decision making at the end, it could have gone very badly for them. Things like using Gust, using Flight, but because they were controlled enough in the end to make it a reality, they did get that 3-0, and that is huge over Gale Force. Let's check in with Casanova from Space Station Gaming, see how he's feeling with the 3-0 victory over Gale Force. Casa, how are you guys feeling?
We're feeling pretty good. I'm still shaking a bit, but yeah, it feels good to get the 3-0. It feels like that's, you know, that's us, but so we can't always be our best selves, and so this time we were.
So I'd love to just break down so many moments from throughout the games, but let's start with Sylvanas. Were you guys expecting Sylvanas from Gale Force eSports in game 1, and did that change up the strategy at all for you guys going in since you had an Abathur comp?
No, it wasn't something we expected. We expected some form of cheese throughout the series, and I guess that's technically what the cheese was the Sylvanas. We just know that if you don't give them punishers, Sylvanas is pretty useless. So really it was just we fought extremely hard for that first punisher, and after we got it, we were very confident for the rest of the game.
And then what about the Haymaker? Was that an Equinox choice? Was that a team choice?
So Equinox just really likes Haymaker, especially on that map, and usually we just let him have Muradin on that map because he's very comfortable in controlling points, and it just worked out for us in the long run. I think Haymaker's fine because he's not looking to team fight, he's looking for point control, and then we just use the Malthael to win team fights, so I think it's a fine pick.
Yeah, it's been cool to see you guys' adaptation play out and work out so well in this series. Dread?
My questions are got to be focused towards just the success out of this week and maybe kind of the reasoning for it. I just feel like you guys performed obviously better here against Gale eSports, getting this 3-0, but it wasn't like any of you had an outstanding performance over the other. You know, it wasn't the day where Casanova hit 3 5-man moshes and that won the game, and that is why Spacestation Gaming gets the 3-0. It felt like every single person individually was making better decisions than they were weeks before that. And I was wondering if you could shed any light as to why that's happening, or maybe if you guys even feel the same way and maybe have your own perspective on that.
I think it's just like win or improve, you know, like last week we lost to Tempo Storm. We looked really bad, honestly. Like, we didn't play great, which felt pretty bad, but we just try and learn from it and come in the next week stronger than the last. I think that's really all you can do when you're trying to become like a top team, is just you have to learn and get better. And if we have a week like this, like that shows improvement. I do think we really need to fix our inconsistency, because I do feel that it's not just us learning from the week prior. We're also just playing infinitely better this week. But overall, it is we do just feel like we learn, get better, and we can put showings like this.
All right, well, that's it for me. Thank you once again, Casanova, and again, congratulations.
Casa, before I let you go and give some shout-outs, what does this victory over Gale Force, this 3-0 over the team that was atop the standings of North America, mean to you and your team?
It feels good to just get a win over GFE. We really felt like we beat ourselves last time against them. So I think just coming back and showing like, yes, we can 3-0 this team, it feels really good.
Awesome. Well, shout-outs before you go?
Yeah, so shout-outs to Spacestation, of course. Shout-outs to Max Spooky. Shout-outs to my whole team, you know, Equinox Trees. Shout-out to Huge, you know, Jason, Tiger. Shout-outs to Chrissy Flower, our manager. Yeah, thanks, guys. Shout-outs to you guys. And of course, shout-outs to Twitch chat.
Nice. Shout-outs to you. Thank you, Casa. Congrats again.
Thank you.
Well, Dread, before we get into our next series, you know I've got something, right? Yeah? Hello. Would you two like to be able to play the Equinox meta? Would you like to be able to play an Alarak or maybe a Haymaker Muradin, but you're afraid of your Hero League and maybe what that will make people say to you?
I'm one of those people.
Are you one of those people?
I'm one of those people.
Well, don't worry. I've got the answer for you. Just a saying that you can use. Just tell them next time. Equinox made me do it.
Do you seriously have any Equinox shirt?
We're going to go figure out how to take this off. We'll be back soon with our next match.
The kite is there. K1 Pro getting out that damage. Counter-Strike is going to be used here, but nobody falling quite yet. Equinox will lose the 1v1, but the Palm procs, Divine Shield, Dimensional...
Still in defensive status, defensive posturing. They have not really been able to pull someone in. Finally, Casanova volunteers to come in, and the damage is immediate.
Mosh.
Behind that, the Mosh Pit catches two, and Malthael's already been brought down thanks to the Counter-Strike.
And the taunt comes in, but it might be too late here. The knockback, the punch coming out from Fan. He needs another reset. Unable to get it. Tiger JK kites away with the... King Caffeine's receiving the pressure. Tiger JK goes ahead, helps out Jason. Mosh Pit is used. Palm is still available. Will it be lands? It does land. Casanova survives.
Strafe doing damage in the back line.
Dash. What am I experiencing here?
They
Divine
are gonna
Palm.
catch trees.
He's got Palm.
Counter-Strike.
Core is now going to be the focus.
There. Trees still gets pulled back in. There's still 3 members here. Tiger JK doing his best to keep Trees alive.
He lives!
Because the longer he keeps him alive, so the game all around. An amazing series for Space Station, and they will take...
Stitches what shame. Stitches what playtime. Stitches play too rough. No one play with Stitches. But Stitches found Nexus. In Nexus, everyone have to play with Stitches. So much playtime makes Stitches hungry.
The dark